Hello and welcome to Sobrix. I'm Adam and this is Sobrix. This is my channel for reviewing Lego sets and building them and other Lego related stuff. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at the Lego Disney Stitch set. This is set number 43249. It has 730 pieces and I paid $52 for this set. This retails for $65 and it was on sale for 20% off, so $13 off gets us down to $52. I thought this set was actually kind of okay value without having built it, just based on what I've seen of it and how it looks. 730 pieces for $65 is not terrible. It's licensed, it's Disney, it's got kind of the collectible box. It is kind of a display model, but it's also only a 9+ set. And I didn't ever get it when it was full price, but I was really interested in it, and then I happened to be able to find it for 20% off, and I felt that that was a enough of a reduction that I didn't want to wait any longer. And I'm really interested to see this. I believe they're maybe all printed pieces, or they could be stickers. Actually, this does look like a sticker. So maybe some stickers in there for the shirt, but I think there is some good stuff in here. It looks really interesting to me. I like display-oriented sets, and this looked kind of unique, so I decided to pick it up. So in this video, I'm going to open this up, I'm going to put this together, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on it. While I build, I will speed the video up, and then I'll slow it back down to review this set. So until then, enjoy. Okay, so while we look at the build for this Lego Disney Stitch set, I just wanted to say thanks for watching, and then remind you, if you like this video, click the thumbs up. If you like my other videos, click the subscribe button. That stuff helps me a lot. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so maybe we can get there. I appreciate all the help. And then if you wanted to help the channel in a different way by giving money to the channel, you could do that here on YouTube with membership, supers, and thanks. There's also the Patreon in the video description and a Buy Me a Coffee in the video description, so maybe consider checking those things out. So the rest of the time I wanted to talk about the build. This actually does take a good amount of time. We start out here with the main core of the body. There's a lot of sub-assemblies being done and then added to this main core of studs on the side kind of bricks that's all throughout there. And then we kind of get out the rounding of the back and we start working on different areas that are going to be for the shoulders, the arms. Here is kind of the neck as well as the arms and everything like that. And we kind of, I think I maybe made a mistake with some colors. Sometimes colors are a problem with me. There are stickers in this set, not too many. You can kind of see in the top left there that I did get extra sticker sheets for whatever reason, which is a little bit strange. Onto the next bag of pieces. This one we work on the feet, the legs there. These are built pretty much the same, except mirrored, and they work really well. There's not a ton of articulation. They just use those ratchet joints and get right in there and stay kind of at the angle they're at, which is okay in my opinion. Once we're done with that, we can build out the arms. So the first one we do is the arm that kind of goes straight down to the ground, and then we attach that in a really nice connection that I go into in detail in the full review. Working on the other arm, it's at a different angle here, so it's a little bit different but a little bit more straightforward. And then we can start working on the head. This is actually really involved. There's some technique in here. There's lots of clips and different things, working with different angles. We have those big ball joints which will hold the ears, but there is, for the upper mouth and jaw area, and then for the lower mouth and jaw, there's a lot of nice stuff that goes into this. We can see we attach the eyes. Those are big printed dome pieces there for the eyes, and they are different from each other, so we make sure we put them in the right spot. And then we really carve out this nice area that will be where the lower jaw goes, and it really only has one angle that it can sit in there at. So once we get the teeth attached, we can attach to the body. We can build out the back of the head and cover up any colors and pieces we don't want seen there. Kind of a couple finishing touches, add the nose, and then we can start working on the ears here. The ears, again, pretty similar, not identical. There is some differences, but for the main kind of structure of them, there are some pretty noticeable similarities. Once we have the ears attached, we can build the flower, which I thought was really interesting. I love Lego Botanicals. And then at the end, we put together a little ice cream cone. So that's it. And now on to my review for this set. Okay, so here we have the Lego Disney Stitch set. This is really quite great. Now, it's been a little bit of time between recording this and when I built this, recording the review portion of it, but it hasn't been super long and it's been on my mind. But this is really exciting, I think pretty well done, and I really enjoyed the heck out of the build experience here. So that was a big positive. There's some great techniques in here and just a really great looking model at the end of this, which I'm very impressed with, and we'll get right into it. There are no minifigures in this set. We did get a Stitch minifigure for the Disney CMF 2 or 3 or whatever that one was, and that one had the double ray guns. I don't believe that one had, did that one have 4 arms? It might have been with 4 arms, and that's sort of the normal, I don't know, base Stitch kind of configuration. But this one that we have in this set is instead a I don't know, the vacation one, or so to speak, or this is one maybe where they're in a disguise in the movie to try to appear a little bit different. So they don't have spikes on the back, they don't have 4 arms, so there are some differences here than other variations of Stitch, and that is okay. So we'll kind of get into this, and I don't know the best way to do this, but I suppose the first thing I'm going to do is talk about this. It's maybe one of the later things you build, I can't quite remember, but this is essentially an ice cream cone, and it's scaled to kind of fit with Stitch here. Super basic. There's a little bit of a technique going throughout here. We got some of these cone pieces and kind of that tan or nougat color there, and then we have a kind of dome piece, another one which is a little bit different, a little bit thicker, a little smaller in diameter, and then we have the eye piece in this kind of pink color there. And this is a really convincing, I would say, ice cream cone. It does fit in Stitch's hand, and it gets pretty solidly in there. It doesn't attach in any very strong way, so it is just kind of free floating in there, but that's pretty cool. And then there are some other builds that Lego has put out, like building a microphone for Stitch that they could hold, or sunglasses, and they even have a thing to order the parts needed to do that. And I might be interested in getting that. I would like to see how these sunglasses look and how they work with the face and everything on here. But for now, the rest of the build out of the box is this Stitch model. So this is sort of a display model for, I think for most people it would be a display model. I'm sure it could be played around with a little bit, but it is not very posable, or doesn't have articulation in a significant way that would allow for more play. And I'm going to kind of go through this in separate parts, kind of in the order that you do it, and just for sake of this, hope this doesn't disturb anybody or make anybody uncomfortable, but I'm going to take off Stitch's head here for now, just so we can get a look at the body. And that's the first part we build. And, you know, coming off of the Tuxedo Cat, which I did not too long before this, there are some similarities here, and there are, you know, obviously differences. There's differences in scale, differences in the overall like design and the proportions and the colors and all that stuff. But there are some similarities with, like, you know, having a angle kind of for the legs or hind legs to kind of splay out a little bit. And the build for the actual torso is really quite interesting. You can see we do have a lot of like studs on the side. So like we can have these studs over here, studs on the side there, and there's like layers of that throughout here, as well as some Technic in there. Around the back, we do have like this big panel piece, which I think actually works really, really nicely here. Glad that the colors for these pieces all work pretty well. We do have stickers in this set. I was surprised. My version of this, the box that I had, came with 3 sticker sheets, and I wasn't sure why that was. I don't think that was intended, and so I had 2 extra ones. The one that I used is, I believe, somewhere near here, but I don't know if I have it immediately in front of me to grab. So it's essentially, the stickers are very much the same, so they're like all identical almost. There's a couple of these half flowers to kind of make this Hawaiian shirt. They come on a sheet like this. All 12 of these are just 1, and these like halves are 02. So that's what the sticker sheet looks like, and those are really the only details on here. I think they probably could have been left off. I like them. I think they look really great. There's not a ton of pressure to like perfectly align them, and I think they end up working quite nicely. So you see we have like 6 of them here on these different sort of like faceted areas there, and they're all kind of spun in different directions there. You have some over on the sides on these slopes, same here on the kind of shoulder area there, and then we have a couple on the front, and then the half ones go on the where like maybe this would button up or something, but they are wearing it kind of open. So then we have some half of ones there, and I think that feels very true to the like wearing a Hawaiian shirt. So we start kind of building the structure here, and if you look at the bottom, you can actually see like a lot of this is built in a certain orientation, and then it gets flipped around. So the bottom actually is like very tiled out here, not for the like legs and arms and stuff, but the bottom of the body is tiled, and so that's really, really nice. So there is some like, you know, building and then changing the orientation of the subassembly to then kind of get to the final shape here. And I actually thought that it was it didn't go in the direction that I thought it would, so I really liked that, because I couldn't quite tell totally what we were doing, and there's enough like asymmetry because of the pose that gets built into this that I also appreciated. So for the back, there is a pretty big portion that is kind of a subassembly back here. That has some like hinge things at the bottom, and all this you kind of build flat, and then it ends up being vertical, and then we cover that up with this bigger kind of panel piece there. And a lot of this, like the line for the through line for this, is probably like about here, and then we do build out the front, but we kind of go about that in different ways as we're going. And then, you know, pretty early on, like this stuff back here is attached as part of this whole big like subassembly that gets put on these pieces that are a little oddly colored with the ratchet joint hinge pieces in there. Those are part of that subassembly. So all of that gets put on this kind of core of, you know, studs on the side building there. And then after we get that on is essentially we tile out the bottom and we turn it a certain way, and then we turn it another way, and then we can start working on like curving out the rest of the back here, and then kind of getting the finishing touches of the flow of the curves of the body for the shirt there, and kind of building all this out. And once we have the back done, you start working on kind of what's going to be the front area, the like chest area sort of. And again, we build this just kind of flat studs up, but then we attach it as a whole like assembly kind of to the other side of these studs on the side bricks that are at the core of this. So we make like this bottom portion, and then we start working on what will be the structure for the arms. So that's its own independent sub-assembly. And we start kind of building that one way. There is a little bit of technique in here, but it works in kind of a nice way, I would say. A lot of it's not super visible, but especially right now, but it works, and that allows for the head to turn. And then because we have one arm that is essentially holding the ice cream cone, or potentially holding the microphone or any other accessory that a person might want to give Stitch, the one arm is kind of sitting at this like 90-degree angle, kind of outstretched, while the other arm is sort of on the ground as support as they're sitting there. And so the core of that, there is some asymmetry because we do need like the structure to kind of build out from the body there. And all that comes together in a whole kind of sub-assembly. Then we add some touches like these curves over here, these slopes, versus using the kind of like cheese wedge 1x2 pieces over here. And actually that part is using like the back of them, which is actually a pretty interesting size and profile for Lego pieces. And there's very minimal gapping throughout this. I think like this one here between this tile and these slopes is maybe the biggest one that I made note of, and it's just because it's on the front, it's maybe the most obvious. And then we kind of keep working, get these shoulder areas. These are pretty much the same, but the structure that allows this to come down and the structure that allows this to come out is sort of built in inherently in there. And then we work on the legs. The legs are largely the same. I think they pretty much are the same, maybe with just slight differences, and you build them like they're mirrored, and those are really nice. Again, some nice studs on the side stuff, really nicely finished with these kind of half circle dome pieces that give it a really nice clean look with not a ton of visible studs. And these attach to the body by using these ratchet joints there. And then like this angle and some of this angle is what kind of connects to it and allows for like that very minimal spacing and gapping here. It feels very natural. So like, yeah, around there we can kind of see some gaps, but it feels really, really nice. And then because of the way this is built, these don't have articulation to like widen them out. You can't rotate them or anything like that. They're pretty much at this angle the entire time, so you can't like push them closer anymore, you can't pull them back anymore, just because we have pieces that are interacting with each other. And that's same on the other side. But for the most part, the legs are pretty much the same build and just kind of reversed left and right, because they have different, just subtle differences on the inside versus the outside. They're not symmetrical. And then we also add on the feet, which are very cute. Again, those are identical. You can kind of make the feet at the same time if you wanted to, but the way that the instructions are laid out is you kind of build one leg and then build the other. But the feet do kind of look very finished as well. And there's some studs on the side. There's some bracket usage, which is all very effective. We do get the impression of like some toes or claws or something for the feet or pads. I don't really know. We also have this in the middle, which is maybe the sole of the foot or the foot pad or whatever, and then these might be claws. So we use some nice pieces there, nice use of some different curves and slopes and wedges to kind of give it that organic feel. And then this just gets put on at the end there with some studs on the side to kind of round that out, and it ends up working very well. Let me see if I can get this back in place. You do see a little bit of the gray in the corners, but not a huge deal. Like I said, the other leg is pretty much the same there. And then after the legs are attached, we do this arm first. And this one, again, it's kind of built, straight up, and there's some interesting stuff in here. You can see down at the base, we use some of these round, like, 4x4 kind of circular plate. And we add on these pieces with the bar elements there. And then there's like a lot of like tile and stuff going around the side. So you can see like these 1x1 round tiles that are stacked there. There's also like these are tiles, kind of angled sort of corner tiles. There's some other like tiling out in between these layers there, which I think is really nice for the color blocking and kind of the striping or whatever there. I think it makes a ton of sense and also makes the build work. And then once we get the kind of foot or hand sort of built, then we work on the actual arm, and that's another instance where we're kind of building in one direction and then change it. It does attach, well, let me see here. It attaches by using two ball joints, and they're staggered in there, and it gives it a really strong connection, but it also doesn't allow for like any movement or articulation. So when you're building this, essentially you kind of put this all like together, almost entirely in like this form, and then snap it into place. Of course, we do use these kind of mech fingers or claw pieces there, which can be articulated. You can also kind of swivel the individual toes or fingers or whatever around to kind of make that nice. And then this just locks in place to these like ball joints in there. And that's really nice. So they're offset just a little bit, and it slides kind of right in there, and we can get this back together. Let me see. There we go. Pretty satisfying, very sturdy. I'm not worried about that coming off at all. And again, it works really nicely. I think like there maybe is a gap right here, but the way that these angled plates come together and just really works, and they cover up a lot of what would be problematic. It's a super snug fit. There's just not a ton of space there. There's really only one kind of way it can go in, and even this is like such a minor gap that that's really nice. And then after we do that, we start working on the other arm. The other arm is in some ways simpler. We do have like the thumb finger kind of coming off the middle there, and then if I pop this off, this is kind of a subassembly. It's not built as one kind of subassembly because this is like put on these brackets here on the side pretty early on, and same for this 2x3 is put on there, and then we could kind of build out from that. But the stuff above that, so like this 2x4, the round kind of plate there, and all the stuff in between is built as its own kind of sub-assembly and then added on, and it attaches very nicely. There's a good amount of connection points, and it also means that we don't have any way to pose this. So I think part of the compromise is if we're going to try to decrease the amount of gaps and open spaces and places that look odd, one of the things we might sacrifice is articulation. So even like back here, we use like, I don't know if we showed that, but kind of this almost not bucket piece, but this like tile with the 3 walls there that's sometimes used to make like Lego boxes. And then we actually cover that up, and like this gap between these cheese slopes and that piece is very minimal. This isn't a gap, it's just a color difference there, not a real big issue. So that fits really, really nicely on there. And do I have this on there correctly? I don't think that was studded down all the way. There we go. And then we can't like rotate the hand at all or anything like that. You can kind of position the fingers a little bit, the claws, same as the other foot. You can kind of position these to a certain extent, but you can get them in a position that will hold the microphone, or in this case, this ice cream cone. And there's a few, there's different ways. It does have some play, and essentially it just like sits in there, so it doesn't connect really. And so it is, if this is being thrown around, it is able to fall out. If it's just sitting on a shelf or on a table or something like that, on a desk maybe, the ice cream cone feels fine, but also easy enough to take out, swap out with a different accessory if one wished. And you can kind of try to find the best position for the fingers and claws to kind of make that the most stable there. And then once we're done with the arms, we essentially work on the head. So what's inside here, you can see that Technic brick. There's actually 3 gears, and 2 of them are on the pins that generally you don't get a ton of, or rather you get a good amount of friction, so they're a little bit harder to turn. They have Technic pins of different types that allow for more or less friction in there, if they're for like an axle or for wheels to spin or for something like that. And this actually uses gears inside, and they're all in a line. They're on like blue pins in there, and then one is kind of in the center, and then that actually attaches to this portion of the head. I mean, ideally, when you build this, it's sort of like that, where we can see the yellow axle coming through there, and then we build the head as its own assembly. It just so happens that for me, like whenever I'm taking this off, it seems like the axle kind of comes with the head more often than staying in with the body. So that's just that difference there, not a huge thing. When it is on there though, it just kind of connects on there, and it does allow us to turn the head, but there is like a little extra friction just because of the way they used like those 3 gears there and the type of pins and axles they used. It's not a ton, but it is something, and the head is very heavy, so I think that helps the stability of it, and it's not like gonna just spin like crazy if I just like push this. It has a little bit of give generally, but I can't just get this to start spinning like a top. It'll come to a stop because there is those extra gears kind of interacting with anything. So it doesn't use a turntable, which I could see them using. I think the Lego Tuxedo Cat kind of did use a turntable there, so the head maybe rotates a little bit easier. This one's a little bit different, and again, very minimal gapping there. If we look at the head build itself, we kind of go about this in a few separate builds, and we start with the kind of let me see here. We start with the kind of, I guess, base of the head, and this is sort of unique. So it sort of starts like from this baseline over tons of studs on the side, tons of really nice techniques. We can see, bracket use and these curves down here, the way all these angles come together, different angles throughout here. Of course, we add these bigger kind of ball joints for where the ears will attach eventually. The big eye pieces are kind of those quarter dome pieces, and they are printed. They attach with like studs on the side, so you can see like the bottom of the like plate area here is going towards the middle, kind of the bridge of the nose, and then underneath here it's essentially just like tile or like a panel. We do build out like the mouth and the teeth, and the lower jaw, again, doesn't have any articulation. We cannot close the mouth or open it wider or do anything like that, and that's for a few reasons. This attaches in a pretty simple way. Here we can see some of the internals there. We can see kind of the upper roof of the mouth, nice attention to detail in there. And then we have some like clips that are holding on to bar elements inside of there. You can also see some of the technique that goes into this. And this has two clips that go on the other side, kind of outside of these clips we see in there. And there's really only one angle that it works at. We can't do it flat because they're kind of tucked up in there, and then we can't come down this way because like the parts are going to interact with each other. But once we get that clipped in, and I knocked off a piece here, I think it goes like this, very minimal gap around here. There's slightly, but we use like a cheese wedge in there. We use these slopes here, all these different angles down here to kind of really minimize that, and also fill in a lot of the blank space that could be there. So this is another gap that maybe when looking at it from the side is a little odd, but otherwise I think it looks really good. I think the shape of the mouth is nice. It's kind of got the little like kind of hint of a smile there while also bearing teeth. We do have like the tongue and the roof of the mouth in there. We have these teeth, which are super basic, just these white kind of triangular kind of pieces going throughout there. And then we have some other kind of details. We have the nose, which is actually a couple different pieces. So you can see we have a round jumper plate there, which is the one stud. It's a 2x2 that goes in there. We add on the and now I'm gonna have trouble getting that back in because it wasn't supposed to come off like that. Essentially we have just this like T-bar element coming off of there, and if I get that back in, it actually then gets tucked behind some of these plate that's like upside down plate. Essentially you can see the studs there. It gets a little bit tucked behind that, and I just want to make sure this is studded down all the way because I don't want to totally tear this apart, and it's seeming like I may have to, but let's try this a different way. If I put the jumper and get that studded down, then I can add this T-bar element and get that in there, and then get this all back to where it was. So like that. Then we build like one side of the nose with a clip. We can clip that on here. Other side of the nose just kind of mirrored there. And then because it is clipped in and then it's on that T-bar, this can be rotated a little bit or a lot of bit. I mean, it can rotate kind of all the way around if one wanted it to. Not there, it does hit some barriers, but it has a good range of motion between these, and that can also be leaned a little bit because of those other clips. And so I liked kind of having it sort of at an angle there and trying to like still match these up, very like minimal gap between them, but because they are two kind of different little things, you could have it be a little bit off like this, which maybe works for some people, doesn't work for other people. Maybe there's some expression where that would make sense, but I think like the angle of the nose can really change how this looks personally to me. So we can't change the eyes, we can't change the angle of the mouth, open the mouth, close the mouth, anything like that. We can turn the head, we can adjust the nose there. We build up the back. The back is pretty straightforward. It's kind of a rounded thing using some big like corner pieces or rounded slope pieces there, and then some different kind of tiles and slopes throughout here with some different kind of color blocking and some striping. We can see there's like Technic kind of that makes up the core of this just for structural kind of strength and integrity. So there is a section of Technic with pins and different stuff going between here. And when we finish up the head, we have a really nicely looked, pretty finished kind of clean look here. Not a ton of studs there, but it's also not like the main focal point, so it could be kind of lacking. It is not entirely flat. It's got a little bit of curve to it, which is nice. I don't know if it would have made sense to have it maybe a little more accentuated and come out a little bit further to kind of make the curve a little more gradual. I think it's pretty good as is. There may be, you know, a plate or two of kind of, or maybe it would need to be more than that, but like extra stuff to kind of build this out a little bit. It did feel somewhat flat to me, considering how much of the front of the face kind of comes out from the sort of core center of this. But then after we do that, we build the ears. The ears are done almost identically, not identically, but close. Again, there's maybe some mirroring to which ear you're doing on what side, and then I think it's fairly clear to see that you know, this one has kind of a notch taken out of it that is true for the character, which makes sense. And once we build the ears and everything, we are pretty much done. It's very much come together. It looks like Stitch. The ears can be posed because they're just on these bigger ball joints, which have enough friction that they will stay where they are. They could also be posed, you know, down something like this. They can be rotated. They can move kind of all around. They have a pretty good range of motion for the ears. And I think that too is another way to really kind of bring into the fold the what kind of expression we want Stitch to display. So we can kind of have the ears down like that. We can have them up. We could have them, you know, even going more up and turned a certain way. You could have them just like flat out. And there's a lot of room in between there to kind of get that. You can almost get them straight up, but not entirely. There's just some areas where these slopes here interact with the build for the head. But like, I think this looks good with the ears down. If that was the way that it wanted to be, you know, put there. And then because you can rotate the head pretty much, or definitely all the way around. The ears don't really come into conflict with any other pieces. I think the ears build is nice. Color blocking is really nice. We do see a couple of studs here. That doesn't bother me. It almost feels like it's a kind of more detail to like the inner ear there. And then we just have some like studs on the side. The back of them is also, you know, finished out with a lot of like tiles or slopes here. This kind of corner dome piece, similar pieces to used right here. And we have the different coloration in kind of the like blue and sort of the light azure, kind of this pale blue tealish color, and then the darker kind of navy blue throughout there. And then the final touches is essentially this flower hat. And this attaches pretty basically. We have one of those tiles with the bar element coming up in there, kind of recessed into the head a little bit. And we make this flower, and this is pretty interesting as well. We use a one of these like bolt or arrow type pieces in gold, and that goes through like this life preserver ring piece in yellow. Then we clip on the kind of clip with the bar receiving end here. And then we make all the little petals that then attach to the ring here. There's just 5 of them. They're all done the same. Colors are nice. We use like the clear clips there. And then just a 2x2. We use some of these heart tiles to kind of get the petals there, and these corner tiles or like wedge tiles to kind of close that gap. And you can kind of like get these oriented so it feels like it's somewhat organic. If they're all just like laid flat, it doesn't look nearly as good, but there's a way to kind of bend them inward and close up a lot of the gaps, and then, you know, our minds can kind of do the extra stuff there. And I think that actually ends up looking pretty good. We have another one of these like bar receiving clip pieces that goes the opposite way. We have a nice color for a hot dog piece in there, and then this kind of berry piece at the end for the kind of main stem or where the pollen is and anything like that. And then that just sits right on top. It can kind of be angled, you know, a little bit. It can be spun around, and so that's another thing that maybe could be used to express a different kind of vibe, or maybe they're more disheveled or less, or, you know, whatever. So you can kind of move the flower elements around. And then I am assuming it's not super easy to do, but you could, if you wanted to, you could, you know, take out this this tile piece and substitute it in with, you know, potentially just another cheese wedge to kind of get that tuft of hair going up there. I don't know if that's going to be perfect, but I think that's I think that's actually a pretty good solution to kind of get it if you didn't want to display it with the flower on the head there. It's not a major transformation. I don't think it's in the instructions in any real way, but it's very easy just using like a couple of the leftover pieces from this set. I don't even think it would be terrible to, you know, display it without the flower, but having that there, it just is maybe one area that could be improved on. Instead of having that in there, maybe just a 1x1 plate and a cheese wedge in there can kind of smooth that out and round that out a little bit and fill that space where the flower goes. As is, I think the flower is quite nice. I like Lego Botanicals. This is a way of making a flower that I don't know if I've seen exactly the same there, so that's really, really good. And that pretty much is Stitch. It's a very solidly built display model, a lot of good techniques actually, and for me it was really informative about like working with clips and hinges and stuff like that, but working with, you know, tighter tolerances and more confined space to get, like, we want to design this in a way that has the desired look and the desired angles, but we also maybe don't want it to be like superposable, and we want to reduce the amount of gaps in there. And that's really interesting. So there are techniques in here using, you know, bar elements that are clipped in one way and then clipped in another way, and then just using different slopes and different bricks and different angles to kind of fill in a lot of that area and also limit the amount of movement there. I think that's true for the legs, for the arms, for like the body build, and then like certainly up at the head area, I think it really shines through. The details are all nice. The stickers are not a big issue. I think these little, you know, tufts of like fur or hair on the chest there are good. The stuff up top here makes sense to me, and I think people would recognize this as Stitch, whether well, assuming they are aware of the Stitch character to begin with. This is a very good Lego version of this, and you know, this seemed to me like it might even kind of verge into the 18+ line it isn't. It's a 9+ set. And I don't think there's anything like too terribly challenging in here. It might take some builders a little longer than others. I think it's pretty good, but it does seem like it's on the like cusp. And I think like comparing this to the Tuxedo Cat, or comparing this to other brick built animals, or comparing this to, you know, like the bigger Simba, the kind of like $130 one, you know, that is an 18+ set, but it is like a Disney character. It is a display figure. I think the scale is a lot bigger. It probably has, you know, double the amount of pieces as this, and potentially the techniques for that are more involved. To me, it kind of feels like it might be similar to this in a lot of ways, but scaled up. And then in terms of like building techniques compared to, say, you know, Isabelle, or, you know, the flower pot things for Moana and Encanto, I do happen to have the one here. I kind of bought these around the same time. You know, this I think is a 9+ set as well. And this has some kind of more involved display oriented building techniques. And it also is, yeah, I mean, it's not a super play set, and it is, I think, a 9+ set. So these are like kind of bridging the gap between solely like play things and then 18+ display things, and kind of bringing those together. And the more that they bring like play features and functions to 18+ sets, I certainly welcome that, as long as we're not like sacrificing those for different design things, which I don't think is the case because of like the way that the new Mario Yoshi thing works, or the way that the radio works, or the way that the Pac-Man machine works, or anything like that. So that we're not really doing that. And then bringing some of the like display ethos to the other lines, I think works really great as well. And I could see, you know, Star Wars and Marvel and other, well, Disney properties, but frankly other like even DC properties, and even for Lego's own stuff, if it's for Ninjago or for City or whatever, kind of bringing these two closer together and kind of getting rid of that barrier between these are 18+ and these are not, essentially. As I understand it, there might be some of the newer Speed Champions that might be 18+, and I think that has more to do with branding than it does like the actual build itself. So there are other things like that. And, you know, for Disney, maybe that's aimed at kids or families, or different stuff, younger folk, or just who knows what Disney is targeted towards. I would say Disney's pretty wide. It's pretty 4-quadrant, and you know, serves a lot of different markets and demographics. So it's good for them to have, you know, something like this, also play sets, mini doll sets, or potentially mini figure sets, and then also go the other way towards like the giant Little Mermaid clamshell, or the Simba model, or the like iconic villains set, which are more of that display, more of that high value set. And this kind of fits really nicely in the middle. So I was very impressed with this. I'll show the extra pieces because we do get some. Like I already showed, there's some 1x1s, some slopes of different colors, the cheese wedges, get an extra of that T-bar piece, extra of the kind of sausage or hot dog piece in a nice color, extra of the heart tile there, a little bit of Technic in here, all your 1x1s, your studs, your tiles, bar elements, tiny pieces that you would expect from a set like this. And this set is 730 pieces, and I paid $52 for it. So it retails for $65. 20% off would be $13 off, which brings us down to $52. So I actually think for a display model, sometimes these things come with premiums and whatever else, with like the prints that are in here, and all the design that went into this. I don't know if there were specific recolors for this. I wouldn't be surprised if there were. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if there were not. But if that is the case, then that's another expense there. 730 pieces, no minifigures, but for like an IP Disney related set, 730 for $65 isn't terrible. And when I think about other stuff like the helmet displays, which are again 18 plus, or the kind of MIDI scale displays or the dioramas or things like that, those sometimes have a premium or often have a premium, and this one doesn't seem to fall in there. And while I don't think it's really well suited for play, and it is, I think, mostly intended to be a display item, it doesn't fall into some of the pricing strategy that other themes and even Disney stuff in that kind of area of display, adult oriented stuff or older builders or advanced builder oriented stuff. This kind of doesn't go there, and then the price doesn't reflect that either. I mean, I did not buy this for $65. I probably would have. It was just not on the top of my list, and since it came out, but I was really interested in it, and then it just so happened that it went on sale. There's another set, the diorama, like I think it's Peter Pan, but that night or something. Like, I really want that set. I'm not sure if that set necessitates the price tag, and I don't think I've seen it on sale yet in any of like the stores that I've been to. I'm sure I could pick it up online for a percentage off of the retail price, but this one came out later than that and then went on sale earlier than that, and so getting this for 20% off, bringing this down to $52 feels about right. And I would like to say for like this amount of Lego and for this size of a display model, maybe $50 should be the like goal price, or $55. But with like the amount of stuff, the overall weight of this, it's pretty substantial. And I think 20% off feels about right. If this retailed at $55, that would have been great. Let me get out my handy dandy scale here and see if we can look at how much this is weighing. So we're looking at about just a pound, about a pound and a little more. 1 pound and essentially 2 ounces is what I'm reading. If we add in the ice cream cone, we get over that 2 ounces, kind of getting close to 2.5 ounces. So, this is a good amount of plastic. It's very solidly built. It's really nicely designed. And so I don't know if the kind of MSRP price, the $65, is really that far off the mark. I think sometimes for the MIDI scale ships and the helmet displays, those are a lot further off the mark in my opinion than this is. But I would like to see I would always like to see Lego sets cheaper. In this case, it's not a super egregious example of the Disney tax or the display tax or any other thing that people could put on this. It doesn't really have those same strikes against it, so I would say this is pretty good. I'm very happy I got it for 20% off. Anything more than 20% off would be an even better deal, and I think this is a worthwhile set to take a look at. There's great building in here, great design, and if you're a fan of the character, I think this is potentially like as good as it might get for a Lego brick built model of it. They could ostensibly do like other versions of Stitch where maybe they do have the 4 arms as well as the legs. Maybe they do have spikes on the back. Maybe some people are already modifying this to, instead of having the Hawaiian shirt version, have a different version of Stitch. But like the core base model for this feels really strong to me. I have very few complaints, and I think they did a great job. So I really, really liked this. And I think the value kind of makes sense. I'm glad I got it on sale, but it's a great set. I enjoyed building it a lot, and I'm very happy to be able to share that and share my thoughts on it with anybody who watches. So it was a real pleasure to build this and talk about it. So thank you very much, and I think that's it. So if you like this video, please click the thumbs up and give it a like. If you like my other videos, click the subscribe button down below so you can stay up to date on all the LEGO videos I'll be doing here in the future, including more display models, maybe more Lilo and Stitch stuff if that comes out, or I have to look back a few ways, more Disney stuff, tons of other LEGO sets from all different themes, all different shapes, size, price point, piece count, tons of different stuff. So subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming LEGO videos. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so I appreciate all the help and support. If you're not subscribed, maybe consider doing it. It means a lot to me. And then if you wanted to support the channel in a different way by giving money to the channel, you can do that. It's here on YouTube with membership supers and thanks. There's also the Patreon in the video description. There's also the buy me a coffee link in the video description, as well as some like affiliate links to be able to buy this set, which would earn me a very small commission, as well as affiliate links to like different gear that I use, cameras, microphones, headphones, some computer parts, and things of that nature. So if you're interested in those, even if you just want to see what I use, you don't have to buy anything, but those are all there as well, which is a new thing I'm trying. And so maybe consider doing that. It does help a lot. I'm trying to kind of find a myriad of ways to, make this a more financially sound without, draining too much from me personally. And if there's a way to do that, great. If not, I'm going to keep doing these. I love making videos about LEGO. Very happy to share my thoughts, and so I'm going to keep doing it either way, but I'm just trying to kind of get more to a balance, so to speak, which would really, really help. So if you're interested in that, maybe consider checking those things out. It is greatly appreciated. And with all that said, until next time, thanks. Bye.